On Tuesday, North Korea claimed to have carried out, and apparently did carry out, one of its most successful missile tests since back in the 1990s. And in this case, it was the first test of a missile capable of striking, in their words, anywhere in the world, although that part is still up for debate. The US military is saying it's a previously never before seen type of missile called the Hwasong-14. It flew for 37 minutes, traveled about 578 miles. But analysts believe that it could have traveled as far as 4,200 miles if it had been fired with an actual intent to strike a target in case of conflict. And what they mean there is that it was purposefully fired at an elevated altitude that meant it didn't go nearly as far, so there wouldn't have been the chance that many countries would have thought that they were being attacked. But theoretically it could have, and if that range could actually be reached, then that is technically an intercontinental ballistic missile. It passes that threshold. Now, if it had that range, it couldn't actually hit the vast majority of American states. And so this idea that it could strike anywhere in the world is ridiculous. It's not actually true, but it could strike a number of countries in the region, obviously, South Korea, Japan, which it can already reach with some of its other missiles, but Alaska as well, and some US bases theoretically could be struck by this new type of missile. Now, perhaps more importantly, what could it actually put on one of these missiles? Now, North Korea has claimed that it can put a, in its words, heavy warhead, a nuclear warhead on the missile that could survive the extreme temperature of re-entry, which is over 16,000 degrees, by the way. So it's an incredible technological feat to be able to do that. So they say that they can. It's believed that they're lying at this point, that they couldn't actually do that. It would be too heavy, and they don't have the miniaturization technology capable of putting a smaller nuke onto this particular missile. But many analysts believe that within 5 years or so, they will be able to do that. And so for all of the limitations and the grandstanding, this is scary, and this is a new threshold that they haven't passed before.
All right, before we get on to Trump's reaction and the disaster that could lead to, first when they said it could hit anywhere in the world, and it went about 500 miles, I thought there was some chance the North Koreans believe that the world is about 500 miles.
Yeah, it's as crazy as believing the world is 5,000 years old.
Yeah, ooh. Or that Kim Jong-un does not possess an anus.
We should check.
Okay, I can't.
Just to be sure.
Not it. Okay. Anyway, so that's among the crazy. So that's why it's hard to trust the North Koreans, because they put out insane propaganda. That's a real piece of propaganda by the North Koreans, by the way, that he doesn't have an anus.
Yeah.
And that he bowls to 300 every time, or that was his dad maybe. So it's hard to take them at face value, and I'm with John, I don't think they could put a nuke on it now, but I'm also with John that it is deeply concerning that they now have ICBMs.
Can I nerd out just a little bit more? Because I mean, look, this is an incredibly scary topic to get into, but it's also technologically incredibly interesting, and the vast majority of people that'll talk about it won't know a damn thing about ICBMs. But one of my favorite stats about ICBMs is that during re-entry, if it's of the sort that the US uses, it can be traveling upwards of Mach 21, which is 4.5 miles a second. That's incredible, and it makes you think about, like, theoretically, if we can do this, if we can develop something like that. Like, imagine if we weren't putting all of our best minds into destroying each other. What else we could accomplish? But anyway, also, and this is important. This is a technical, nerdy thing, but this particular Hwasong-14 is a liquid-fueled missile. It's not believed that North Korea has the capability to do this sort of missile with solid fuel. And the reason that that's important is that solid fuel theoretically can be sort of a component of the missile. You just leave it in the missile, and that means that if some sort of conflict develops, if nuclear war suddenly erupts, you can launch missiles right then. We have that capability. A liquid-fueled missile has to be fueled immediately prior to being fired, because the fuel is corrosive. You can't just leave it in the missile. That means that it takes time. You can't respond as quickly to some sort of military conflict. And it also means that during that process, you have to protect the missiles from being seen by satellites, which is difficult in terms of infrastructure and all that. So a few more reasons to be a little bit less scared, but those are technological hurdles that eventually could be overcome.
Yeah, I'm really not convinced that they could hit Alaska. I mean, these guys, as Ben famously says, sometimes have trouble making the toilets flush. So on the other hand, they could definitely, with the missiles they already have, hit South Korea and Japan and cause unbelievable.
That's true.
Life loss.
Yeah.
And the missile that they fired to hit Alaska will probably blow up in the middle and hit Moscow or Helsinki or somewhere else, right? So probably not going in that direction, but you see my point.
Well, okay. Maybe they're really bad at aim.
You never know with these guys. So it could do untold damage.
Yeah.
And now let's acknowledge that they apparently, the North Koreans also watched TYT. They were obviously going to go with a Wasikter missile, but they thought that was a little too obvious, so they went Wasong missile.
Yeah, they're still infringing on some copyrights. They're close anyway. Donald Trump said that if North Korea tests an ICBM, that there will be hell to pay. That weren't his exact words, but he said that there will be consequences, and so they've done it. Our military acknowledges it. Here is his response on Twitter, of course. North Korea has just launched another missile. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life?
Okay, come on. So first of all, even though I don't like to give credit to Keith Olbermann, I did notice your retweet of him where he was like, dude, you're on Twitter and watch cable news 24/7. So
seriously,
glass house here. Okay.
Donald Trump is apparently our president, and modern presidential is basically you act as if you're some sort of stereotypical TV sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
Don't you have anything better to do with your life?
No, if you're a North Korean dictator, you don't actually. This is actually on the top of your priority list.
Yeah.
Is to develop missiles that could hit the United States so you could have some sort of effective threat against them.
Yeah.
I think it's a really bad idea, but probably if you're a dictator that runs gulags, probably a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot of other things you could do that would be a bigger waste of time.
Yeah, but I just got to remind you, this is the president that people support because he's strong. So, does this guy have anything better to do with his life? Hard to believe that South Korea and Japan will put up with this much longer. Perhaps China will put a heavy move on North Korea and end this nonsense once and for all. If they do move on North Korea, don't move on her like a bitch. That's all I can say, like Donald Trump's other classic quotes.
Maybe China will buy North Korea some furniture, see if that works.
You can get a lot done with some furniture,
Because in those infamous tapes, if you remember, he said he moved on her like a bitch by buying her furniture, and this was the anchor. But it didn't work. She was married and wasn't interested in the furniture. I mean, who could have guessed that?
Yeah.
Anyway,
so look,
but by the way, I do agree with him that China's playing us. But I said that from the day that Trump met China and thought they were honest actors. So he's like, oh man, their leader told me all about this North Korea situation. Nobody knew North Korea was this complicated.
Yeah,
right?
So look, and what he's referencing there is that apparently he has some sort of information about trade going up between North Korea and China and says that that's them playing us. I mean, look, theoretically, diplomatically, having increased economic ties between two countries can actually be a good thing because it lowers the chance of some sort of war between them. I doubt we're going to be able to establish that with North Korea, but it's not universally a bad thing in terms of diplomacy. But look, I know simultaneously, this is the only information we get from Donald Trump is from his Twitter. Most people are trying to say you should never pay attention to anything he says, but we're talking about the possibility of nuclear war. So at some point, we have to use the information that we have. Now, he's not the only person from the US government that responded to the missile test. The general in charge of that region, US forces in that region, is Vincent K. Brooks, who said, self-restraint, which is a choice, is all that separates armistice and war. It would be a grave mistake for anyone to believe anything to the contrary, saying that self-restraint is the only thing stopping us from attacking North Korea at this point, which is, I guess, strong. It's also scary. And it came after a military exercise, a joint military exercise between the US and South Korea within 10 miles of the DMZ, where we also fired missiles into the ocean. Apparently it's a race to see who can fill up the ocean with more missiles. That's how you prove you're a big guy. But look, that's what we're doing, and there is reason to be concerned about what North Korea is doing and whether they can fire a nuke at us today or in 5 years. I would say that 5 years is still within the possible second term of Donald Trump. So that's something to consider during the next election.
Again, I agree with him that the correct path is to pressure China. I'm not sure it should be in the form of tweets
or in the form of Donald Trump.
Right, and he says, so much for China working with us, but we had to give it a try. Okay, I would much rather that they do that though than go to the military option. So yes,
Agreed.
Find a better way, a smarter way to pressure China, because apparently the first time where you just took their word for it, was not much of a deal. Well, there wasn't much art to that deal. You were just an idiot who believed the Chinese leader, and of course he didn't do what he promised in that case. The last part of this that's scary is the talk of only thing stopping us from this war is self-restraint, when the guy in charge of our country, not well known for self-restraint.
No.
So that's what scares me about Trump, and I've said it from day one, the issue I'm most concerned about with Donald Trump and being in charge is North Korea. Because Mike Pence would probably do tax cuts for the rich and would repeal Obamacare and would do all those things that Trump is doing just as much as Trump would. But he probably wouldn't get us into an asinine war with North Korea. He'd get us into a war where his friends would make more money. Yeah. Nobody's making any money from North Korea. Everybody's dying. It's a terrible, terrible idea, but the guy in charge doesn't have a lot of self-restraint and doesn't understand any of it. He had to have the Chinese leader explain it to him when he got into office.
Yeah.
Help us build independent media together. TYTnetwork.com/join.